Welcome to FedScoop TV. I'm Wyatt Cash, and we're here at the Red Hat 2016 Government Symposium. And joining us is Walt Wagner. Walt is the project manager at Immigration and Customs Enforcement.
Thanks, Wyatt.
Yeah, glad that you could join us. Thanks for being with us.
My pleasure.
So we're talking about open source here, and I'm interested in your view. How have you seen open source evolve from an agency's point of view?
Interestingly enough, we at ICE have really just gotten into the open source world in the last couple of years. The project that I'm still working on right now has just been a huge case management system that we're putting together for the special agents at ICE. And as part of building that case management system, we introduced open source components for the first time. So, we've worked with, Red Hat in that regard, used some of their suites, and it's been extremely successful for us. So, this project was actually kind of moved out of the mainstream and was run independently. I think now our challenge is to take the concepts that we developed in this project and begin to move them to the rest of our OCIO organization. So,
what was the catalyst that got the agency committed, the leadership committed to working with open source, and how do you see open source evolving as we go ahead over the next couple of years?
it was a bit of a job. It was a bit of a hard sell for us. I mean, ICE had traditionally been with the large commercial suppliers of application systems, and had usually gone the regular route of having people build custom applications for them. As we took a look at this project, which got off to a really rough start about 5 years ago, we looked at some of the components we needed to build and knew that there were solution sets in the open source space that we could put together. So we literally did an analysis of some of the commercial products in that space, and at the same time looked at some of the open source solutions, and literally put a presentation together for OCIO management, which wasn't well received initially, but we kept at it. And also had to work with our acquisitions people, since they didn't really know what the difference between a subscription and a license for software was. But eventually we prevailed and built the orchestration layer of this particular application, which communicates with other systems external to ICE, using some Red Hat products that have worked out really, really well for us. So now the deal is to try and take those concepts and move them into OCIO in general, to permit the rest of the OCIO organization to be able to look at the mandates that are in place and open source solutions, and see if we can make more traction in that direction.
Well, one of the proponents, or one of the reasons for open source's advantages, is there's a large community working on it, so that enhancements can come on stream faster than often is the case within agencies that have more specialized teams or are working with under contract. So has that been your experience, that you've been able to see features, or at least the foundations, evolve faster?
It has, and the solution set is pretty mature. The responsiveness of Red Hat and their teams to issues that we've seen has been very, very quick. And the beauty of the open source solutions is that we can, I say we, obviously I'm a government project manager. My supplier, on the other hand, using open source tools can, get some really bright kids straight out of college, put them to work on these things, and literally get productivity very, very quickly, whereas if we were using a commercial product suite, the learning curve would be considerably longer to get people productive. So it's worked for us in terms of speed of delivery, it's worked for us in terms of support, and this very platform is being used by a number of big commercial pursuits as well as government agencies. It's low overhead, it's very light, and it does the job for us without a lot of hemming and hawing that we'd have if we used a commercial product. So,
Terrific.
We're extremely pleased.
Terrific. Well, let's talk about security. Obviously, one of the common concerns, sometimes a bit of a misperception, is that open source faces more security challenges, or it might not be as secure, even though you've got more eyes looking at the code. What's your take on that?
And again, it is a bit of a misnomer. you have more eyes looking at the code, and the fact of the matter is the code is there to be reviewed. So not only do you have your communities of interest built around the product suites, but your own people can examine the code. We in fact on this project have suggested a couple of changes to the AMQ code that Red Hat's been extremely receptive to, and that we've got basically packaged in the new Fuse release that just came out. So, a lot of cooperation there. On the security front, I mean, it's there for everybody to see. Yeah, sure, your hackers can see it too, but at the same time, the community of interest is large enough that we believe that over time we can prepare for an eventuality. And, I think it will take a while for folks to learn that that's really the case. Unfortunately, the only way we find out about vulnerabilities in commercial code is oftentimes to have an incident that backs us into a corner that we have to apply a fix for. And I think the fact that we can be proactive about security measures in the open source community is the best.
That's certainly a positive. Let me ask briefly about the topic of IT modernization. Certainly U.S. CIO Tony Scott has made that a big issue of our infrastructure and the importance of moving forward. Do you see open source being having the opportunity to contribute or support IT modernization?
I really do. I think it will. I think it will literally end up being one of the pillars of IT modernization from a number of perspectives. I think, in terms of reuse, in terms of cost containment, I think it's going to be the way to go. The problem, of course, is that there are a lot of paradigm shifts involved in making this happen, from procurement to basically the way we deal with contractors. I mean, our suppliers oftentimes are basically selling us a package deal, or we're getting a product constructed and then we're buying maintenance for that product. And that's their hallmark. That's the way they stay in business. So, there's a paradigm shift for our suppliers. There's a paradigm shift for us. There's a paradigm shift for the folks that are doing the procurement for government. And of course, that's the hallmark of government IT, is using external suppliers to provide it. So, I think we need to tread softly at first, and certainly the 20% metric that was kind of hung out there initially, I think is aiming at kind of slow immersion into this paradigm shift. But we're making headway, and again, this was kind of our first junket at ICE into that space, and so far so good.
And lastly, as you think about more broadly collaboration, mobility, the cloud, how do you see open source sort of redefining how agencies like yours are going about evolving their IT?
Well, interestingly enough, the solution that I just spoke about that we've just recently implemented, a significant portion of it is a COTS product. Well, the fact of the matter is that COTS product, even though it's proprietary, uses a whole plethora of open source subcomponents to basically deliver the functionality that it delivers. So even if we hadn't moved into open source for some of our development work, we would have inherited a lot of open source subcomponents by virtue of the COTS product that we just acquired. So I think the writing is on the wall. There are no silver bullets. I mean, you hear silver bullets referred to. Those of us that have been in the IT community a long time know that no such thing exists. The Lone Ranger had his, but I don't think we've ever found one. But I do think this is going to have a lot of staying power. I think it's going to help contain costs. I think it's going to basically prompt reusability if, in fact, government agencies can get their act together. And there, of course, is one of the rubs. Change management is always an issue. It's particularly an issue in some government circles, and I think we're going to have to work really hard at it.
Well, Walt Wagner, I appreciate the perseverance that you're demonstrating and trying to innovate at ICE and so forth. Thanks for joining us.
Great talking to you.
Okay. I'm Wyatt Cash. See more of our coverage at fedscoop.com. Thanks for being with us.